The advice and opinions expressed by Dr. Granpeesheh and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. I'm Shannon Penrod and look who I'm here with, the fabulous,
Good morning, Shannon.
the wonderful, the magnificent Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. I want there to be like a little firework thing when I introduce you. So thrilled to be here with you. Good morning.
Me too, thank you.
And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. If you don't know Dr. Granpeesheh, she's a true expert in the field of autism. She's been working in this field for 45 years, something like that.
Yeah, probably more now, 46, I guess.
That's craziness. She does not look it. I know she does not look it, nor does she act it in terms of, how she lives her life, but she truly is an expert who has been working with so many individuals on the spectrum, from very young babies up through senior citizens, helping them to achieve things that are meaningful to themselves, which is really wonderful. I don't think there's anybody who takes a more humanistic approach towards helping individuals on the spectrum to achieve what they are capable of.
Thank you, I hope so.
Yes, and I see that that's a driving principle in your life on a daily basis, you guys. It's my great privilege to sit here and help to moderate so that you guys can ask her questions in this format. She donates this hour and has been doing so. We're now in the 14th year and soon will be in the 15th year.
That's awesome.
That is
so exciting.
insane.
What
Absolutely.
months did we start? Do you remember?
So the thing is, we started as one show.
Yes,
The show was called Skills Live, and we started that
yeah.
in the month of September. But then by April, we felt that there were so many more topics. So on April, I believe 5th, we began Autism Live.
Amazing, amazing.
So a little bit of a history for everybody, but both in Skills Live and in Autism Live, we were doing Ask Dr. Doreen. So you're kind of a crossover. We've been doing Ask Dr. Doreen longer than we've been doing Autism Live.
Crazy.
So yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. So there we have it. And during this hour, hey, we're saying hello already to Rodney. And Rodney, thank you for reminding me that we're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and our fabulous Chris Desmond will show you some of the other places that we are not only live, but that we will podcast and be available for you later on as a free download for a podcast. I don't want to forget to tell you about our YouTube channels with an S, because there are 2 podcasts right now and 2 YouTube channels. Really want to encourage you. There is Autism Live podcast and Autism Live YouTube channel, but there is also an Ask Dr. Doreen YouTube channel and a Ask Dr. Doreen podcast. Really want to encourage you to like and subscribe and tell other people and review both of those podcasts, because that's the way other people get to find it. And you're actually helping other people find the podcast when you do that. Good morning, Susie B. So thrilled to have you here. I also want to mention that if you are listening to us in podcast, by the way, on the YouTube channels, you get to see picture and sound if you're doing that, and you can search topics. But many of you like to listen in podcasts. We totally get that. We listen to podcasts too. You will notice that there are advertisements on the podcast. That's because there is a cost to do the show, but also there is a cost. Every time you download the podcast, there is a cost for it. And we don't like for you to have to pay that, so the advertisers defray that cost. We're very happy to have them do that, and we hope that you will be happy about that as well. However, some of you have asked us and said, hey, I'd rather pay a small fee and have it ad-free. And I know you were very adamant about the fact that we needed to have that, and we're very happy that we can provide that to you. If you go to glow, glow.fm/autism live. Now, when you go there, it is a $5 a month if you're doing it monthly. It is a cheaper cost if you do it across the year. And here is the really spectacular news. If you pay that fee, you will receive both the Autism Live and the Ask Dr. Doreen podcast and you will get them ad-free. So that is entirely up to you. We hope you will do what is best for you, as in all things. We're saying hello to Amanda with a blue heart. So thrilled that you are here. Okay, so today our topic, are you ready for this? Everybody take a deep breath. Balancing school and ABA, which is a big, now obviously we're going to talk about other things, and you can start sending in your questions now. I try to remember, although I forget often, to tell you to send your questions in early. It helps me sort of pace and know, but I know we get to the half hour and that's when everybody starts to get warmed up. And that's when you guys send in the questions, and then you can see me visibly starting to be stressed at about the 45-minute mark, because I'm like, we're not going to get all these questions in. So do yourself a favor and do my stomach lining a favor, because I care about getting your question answered. Send it in early. Andrea's here as well. Good morning. Okay, so balancing school and ABA. I'm hot now. I'm having a hot flash because I got so excited about everything. Okay. My child is 5 and is not yet potty trained. School is pressuring us to put him in their full day program. My ABA team would like me to keep him in their program full day. I decided to send him to school. Now the ABA team is suggesting that he do half day at school and half day at the center. I would like him to go to school all day and then go to the center for afternoons and weekends, but they tell me they don't have the therapist for that. Am I wrong to send him to school?
Right. That's a great question. I'm so glad we start out with that question, because it's one of the most common questions, and not just on our show, but in general. We hear that a lot from our parents. Honestly, I think it has to do with the child, right? I mean, I am mostly of the mind that your child will learn a lot more when they have one-to-one. There's just no question about that. Like any type of new thing that you want to learn, if you have a one-to-one instructor, you're going to learn faster than if you're in a classroom setting. So from my perspective, ABA is going to always help the child learn more content. But there are children whose social skills are at a level, or their language, communication, and their challenging behaviors, everything is at a level where they will actually benefit significantly from being around other children. And I think you said age 5, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's around the time when we start to have to make these decisions. That's why we love to have children who start ABA much younger, 2 or 3. That gives us the ability to have at least 2 or 3 years of really intensive work with the child before having to worry about school and academic stuff. So really, I think it's a decision you have to make based on your child's capabilities. If it was me, let me just put it that way, not knowing your child. If it was me, I would be pushing to do more and more ABA as much as I could until I just wouldn't be allowed to anymore. So I'd probably keep my child doing ABA closer to 6, maybe even 7, depending on where I am, doing a lot of ABA. And if you want, you can start kind of integrating with school, but you don't have to do full day. You don't even have to do half day. Like, one of the things we do is we have our children start with school 3 days a week, 2 or 3 hours each time, right? So they're like in school 9 hours as opposed to 30. And that gives us the ability to do a lot more of one-to-one work with the ABA to help the child catch up. There's also other ways that you can integrate your child into social situations. Ideally, in those places where it's possible, some districts have 2 programs running, right? So they will actually have a classroom program that starts in the afternoon. And so in the morning, you could be doing ABA. Remember, mornings, not only are most providers, ABA providers, available to do therapy in the mornings, obviously because, 90% of our children want therapy after school. So after school, it's like a huge wait list and very difficult to get therapists for any child after school, right? It's like the busiest time you go to a clinic. It's like everybody's dropping their child off at 3 o'clock. It's very, very busy. But if you have the ability to do, for example, morning ABA sessions, also the child is more awake, fresh, learning, their brain is more receptive in the morning. So if you have the ability to do morning ABA afternoon, some sort of academic school program, even homeschooling, whatever it might be, that's the ideal scenario, because you will get you'll learn a lot of content, you'll have a little bit of social time in the afternoon. You can also put your child in other social activities like gym or theater or weekend sports or whatever it might be, so that they are around other children as well. But honestly, your ABA is going to cut out, and so why not take advantage of it as long as you can, because it's all about learning, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of potty training, that's something your ABA provider should be able to do with your child in, a week. So if you during spring break or during the summer break or something like that, they should get that done and over with, so you don't have to deal with that again.
I have so many things I want to say. First
Yeah,
of all, I want to
please.
say hi to Joannie, I'm so excited you're able to catch us live too, because I know that's hard usually. I also want to say you reminded me that I didn't say the disclaimer.
Oh.
That Dr. Granpeesheh
Yes.
is a true expert in this field, but there is no expert in any field that could give individual specific advice in this format. So please send us as much information as possible, and she will give you an answer that we love, but is general in nature, and that you need to have the expert that has eyes on the situation to give you individual
It's hard,
specific
yeah.
advice. But I'm so glad that you brought up the potty training thing too, because I love school. I think you love school too. We love what
Sure.
school can do. But statistically, science has shown that for this age range at 5, you are going to get significantly more done with ABA, including the
sure.
potty training.
Yeah.
I would not, personally, former teacher, I would not, if you have ABA in place, I would not send a child who's not potty trained to school.
Yeah.
I would have the ABA team do it, and I wouldn't even be looking at school until they have that or have made a really good attempt at it. Because if there's something going on that the child can't, that's one
I
thing.
mean, a lot of schools actually don't even allow you to go
For
if
good
you don't
reasons,
have potty
because they're
training.
not trained to do it,
Yeah.
and because it's not ideal for your child, and it can
Right.
quickly become aversive.
Right.
So I definitely want to say that, but I also want to bring up that part of the real problem here is that, of course, school wants your child there in the morning, because what you just said, that the child is fresher then, they're going to be able to get more done then. But what you have is this conflict. Like, school is good and ABA is good, but ABA is better at teaching your child things. And if your child goes to school and they're not socially ready, sometimes we see children who they're in the corner by themselves.
That's right,
And
that's right.
and we want them to be around other children, but if they don't have the skills to be around other children, we're putting them on the difficult ski hill. Better to get that ABA in place. But I do love, it came up last week about schools such as Brightmont,
Mm-hmm.
which will work around your schedule, not you work around their schedule.
Right.
So that is a possibility, because it sounds like the biggest reason is that, everybody is wanting to have this child in the morning, and they don't have the facility to do it in the afternoon.
And-
I love
and-
schools who say, well, we'll do it when you need.
Right, but you brought up something in the past that's also very important, is that, like, with public school, if you need to be there by a certain hour in order for
Yes.
them to get funded.
Yes, which
So
is...
you may want to talk about that.
Yeah, there's a golden time for every school. It's different in different states and different districts, but I know for my son's school, it was 10:30.
Yep.
If my child was in school until 10:30, then the school got paid regardless of what happened. If he
Right.
left at 10:31, they still got their pay for the day. If he came in at 10:31, it didn't matter that he was there for the rest of the day, they didn't get paid. And schools will not bring this up to you, but it is a very big part of anything you are negotiating with them. They are going to argue that your child needs to be there in the morning so that they hit that golden hour, because they literally won't get paid
Yeah.
otherwise. But you need to know that. I love the mom who always said to me, show me the dollar sign over my child's head and then I will listen to you.
Yes.
But unfortunately, for the school, it is a very real thing for them.
Sure.
That if you're bringing your child in half day in the afternoon, they're not going to get paid.
Right.
Your child is there for free.
And I mean, that's another way to deal with it, right? If that's the situation, first of all, you need to find out,
Yeah.
like, what the hour is. But then, it's still, you still can get a lot of really good ABA if you pull your child at 10:30 every day and take them to an ABA center.
And by the way, since we've been talking about this with families, they have gone in and had a frank conversation and said, this is a medically necessary treatment. We need to have it, but we'd like to work with you. What is the time that you need him here until?
That's
and
great.
can you work with me? And to great success, I might add.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And then, so that they get their thing, the child is there, and then the child gets the ABA.
Awesome.
So, because 10:30 is not that late for ABA. Okay. Second question on the school thing, and then I'm going to get to your question, Joannie. I would like to know how parents do school and ABA. My 9-year-old was just diagnosed and they are recommending ABA. He was having issues in school because he didn't want to be there, and now I am supposed to convince him to go somewhere after school. How am I supposed to do that when all he wants is to stay home and play video games? Giving this parent a hug.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult. I mean, especially when you're dealing with older kids, right? It's just they don't want to do something and it's harder to get them to do it. So, but remember that every environment for your child, it's not necessarily going to be the same thing that is going on in school when you talk about ABA. Every environment is different. Every environment is going to be liked or disliked based on the number or amount of reward or fun or reinforcer that we get in that environment. So if you find a really good ABA provider would actually would get him in the afternoon and would start by playing video games with him. And then they would gradually make that contingent on work. So initially it would be a lot of actually just like entering and doing the stuff that he likes, and then gradually saying, okay, well, we got to do like a little bit of this, and then we'll go back to that, and then we'll do this and that. And then gradually, very gradually, they would make it so that the video games become a reinforcer. So therefore, don't worry about the fact that going to ABA is going to be aversive. It's not. If it's a good provider, they will know how to reward your child. The other side of this is also go to school and find out why he hates it. Like, we ignore these things, and it's so important because sometimes with our kids, it could very well be that, a contrast of doing video games all day to learning at school, the video games are always going to they're always going to win, right? But you want to make sure that during those educational times, like when he's learning, there's also reinforcers, like they're making it somewhat fun or rewarding. Because remember, with typically developing kids, there are these other kind of intrinsic rewards that our kids don't necessarily experience. So for example, a child might be very motivated to go to school because they are so rewarded when they see their parent being happy. So their parents' pride or happiness is a massive reward to a child. But in a lot of cases with our kids, they're not quite able to grasp that because they don't really have that perspective taking and the ability to understand, ability to like value their parents' pride and all that sort of stuff. So it's not a reinforcer for a lot of kids on the spectrum. And so you have to make sure that what they're doing at school is rewarded. And there's so many different ways to do that. But that's what it's about. It doesn't matter what the specific name of the activity is, whether it's school or ABA or anything else. Whatever it is needs to be somewhat rewarding.
Yeah, school can be so boring sometimes.
Boring, it could be so many things, Shannon.
Yeah.
It could be bullies at school.
Yes.
It could be, like you said, the child is left alone and they're bored or don't even know what to do. It could be too difficult material. It could be a teacher that makes them feel bad about them. So it could be a million things. You need to find out.
Absolutely. I would offer two things, though, that I see is that years ago they did the study about what helps kids to be bully-proof, and it was to have clubs on campus so that they could meet like-minded kids. And 9 is not too young that you can go to the school and say, can we start a lunch club that is just for video games?
Yeah.
And have somebody moderate it, but that you get together all the kids who are really into video games and they sit together at lunch so that at least they've got that.
Yes.
And they'll get some friends from it. But one of the things I've seen so often at CARD with these kinds of kiddos is that they say to the parent, what is your child's, what's like the video game they've been waiting for? Like the one that they're like, oh, I hope my birthday comes soon because I want that video game. And then the parents can purchase the video game and it lives at card, at the center. And your child's
That's
name
so
is on
awesome.
it.
I
And,
love
and
that.
everybody knows that it's your child's video game. It's not that
Yeah.
you're donating it to the center. It's your child's video
Love
game.
that.
But then when your child goes, they know when I go there, I'm going to get to play that video game.
Love that.
And you can even
What
have a
great
thing.
idea.
You can, but I didn't. Your card people do this. I did not come up with that idea. But you can even. I've seen it work where they have to do a certain amount of things, and then the video game gets to come home. But then you have to have another video game
At the office.
center
At
to
the center,
take
yeah.
to take its place. But
That's awesome.
because I always go back to what you say. It has to be fair.
It has to be fair, and I think whoever came up with that idea, they're also understanding that there's a thing called satiation. We get filled if we have the same reinforcer, right? We satiate, so then we don't want that anymore.
Right.
So having certain things that are very powerful, restricted in time. So in other words, this is my favorite thing, but I only get it between these hours if I do this, is a very powerful tool in ABA.
Yes, I'm glad you said that because we've had a lot of parents be like, well, what we'll do is we'll buy the video game, but we'll put it in his bag to come. We don't want him to not have it at home.
Oh, we'll
this
have
does not
one
work.
at home, one at card.
This
yeah.
does not work.
Yeah.
This does not work
Yeah,
at all because
and that's the
eventually
whole
they're like, I can
point.
play when I go home. Why would I want to go there?
Right.
So we want to make it fun. Okay, I love this question, Joanne. Joanne says, Shannon, I've been so behind on episodes and so happy that I can make them up. We have a problem with my 11-year-old son dropping the F-bomb.
Yeah.
A child of my tribe. I know you mentioned it on your parent to parent. He just finished his 2-week punishment, no computers, after his second offense. Dr. Doreen, what do you recommend as a reward daily, weekly for no longer using those kinds of words? No computers is a punishment for bad behavior, but ABA is about rewards and encouragement of good behaviors.
Right.
Please help, sending you a hug.
Right.
Uh,
So it's a great question, and you're doing intervention on both sides. This is not, just to differentiate, because in ABA we don't like to use punishment. This is response cost. This is not punishment. Punishment is when you give a negative consequence, like you literally give a negative consequence for a behavior. What you're doing here, Joannie, is you're removing a positive, which is basically response cost, which is great, and that's going to be effective. So you're removing the access to computers when he uses the F-bomb. Okay. Now what you want to do is you want to get a baseline of amount of time where he doesn't use it, or a scenario where he doesn't. Like, what I would do is I'd probably list some information. I'd take some information and data about when he uses the F-bomb, because it's also very possible, like you need, again, like everything else in ABA, you need to find out the function. Why is he using the F-bomb? Under what circumstances? Is it when it's a period of time passes and he's just using it? Or is it because he's frustrated? Is it because he's getting attention? Which, by the way, the number one thing in just typically developing adolescence is just attention. Not necessarily attention from us, but attention from their peers, etc. It is an attention function. But whatever it is, identify that first, because that'll help you figure out how to consequate it better. But what I do want to say is rewards are different per person. So I can't give you a list of what would be rewarding for him, Joannie. It's about him. What we can do is we can send you a list. We have a really good long list of possible rewards, and you can look at them and they might give you some ideas. Shannon could certainly send that to you. It could be anything, remember, from activities, food items, avoidance of things he doesn't like, people that he likes to hang out with, just items that he might want to purchase. I mean, there's just so much stuff that could be a massage. Like, there's so many things that are rewarding to different people. So I think it's important that you go through that. And if he's able to, he can tell you. And if not, you can maybe go through and mark like 5 or 6 things that you think might be rewarding.
Yeah. We had a BCBA who was on the show last week who is on the spectrum. And we were talking about rewards. And she said, for instance, for women of our age, that, you know, it's thought that the big reward is to go to the spa and get your nails done
Yeah.
and whatever. And she's like, that's a sensory nightmare for me. And I'm like, me too.
Exactly. There's so many people. It's funny you say that because,
Yeah.
like, I one time, as a reward, got IVs. Do you remember this?
I was just talking about this with my husband the other day.
Yeah, I got IVs.
We were watching a show and somebody did this on the show, and I was like, I remember when
I did this
you
for,
did
I
this.
think it was Christmas or something. I was
Yes.
like, I'm going to get this for all the directors. And it was
Yeah.
like 20 people or so. And these are, and I thought, wow, it's so rewarding for me because
Yeah.
those IVs are so hydrating and they make you feel good and they give you all
Yes.
kinds of vitamins and all that. A couple of people actually had to leave the room because it was so aversive.
I was sitting next to somebody who had to put their head between their knees because as they were giving the needle to other people, he turned just white.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
yes.
And left. Yeah.
And left. And I said, thank you, but I'll pass. Because
Yeah,
I
so
just couldn't do it.
rewards are
Yeah.
are personal.
Yes, yes. But it was very sweet, and it was a lovely
Thank
thought
you,
that you did that. Okay, I have to get to this question, or else Marina won't speak to me. This came in on your website. Hi, Dr. Doreen. I love your methods, and your interviews are so inspirational. I have 2 kids on the spectrum, ages 5 and 7. Both are pretty much nonverbal. We live in the United Kingdom, and we are moving to the U.S. in late 2024, 2025, as soon as we possibly can. I want to enroll the kids in an ABA program ASAP when we get there. Please could you or one of your colleagues let me know where is the best place to access ABA for our children in North Carolina, the Charlotte, Raleigh area. As the parent, I want to learn the method of ABA as well as enrolling the children to have as much therapy as possible. We're starting late from the pros. Thank you for all your hard work with our kids on the spectrum.
That's so nice. Yeah, we can certainly look and see what resources there are. I don't know, I forget the name of Mark Knight's program because he is in the
Is
Raleigh.
that where that is?
I think he is
Okay,
in
I
the
can look that
Charlotte
up.
area, yeah. And so definitely we can certainly look up and give you some ideas of, I think it's, I'm trying to remember if it was Hope or something like that was the name of
hope
his
was
program.
the word that I was hearing too.
Yeah, and I know that he will definitely be overseeing a good program, right? And that program also is has a huge amount of parent involvement. I've met those 3, I think, moms who are very involved in that program, and they keep it good and high quality. So we'll definitely do that. And thanks for your kind words. We love that we have any kind of impact on folks who are in other parts of the world. It's so nice for us.
But in the meantime, because that's at least 6 months to
Yeah.
potentially a year away, what would you recommend for her for right now so that she can be learning it?
Honestly, I think the best thing any parent can do at any point that you have time is to learn the techniques of ABA yourself. And there's so many different ways you can do this online. One of the ways is IBT, Institute for Behavior Training, where you can access a lot of the training that we've done over the years and is available for parents. We're about to kind of revamp some of that stuff and provide it to parents in lots of different new ways now that technology has advanced. But go on ibehavioraltraining.com, I believe, right?
ibehavioraltraining.com.
Yeah, and you'll find a lot of really interesting video modules that are very short modules, and they will give you a lot of information on everything, like how to manage your child in public, how to learn how to do like basic discrete trial ABA, which is kind of like the very core of ABA is teaching someone through discrete trial. So learning the techniques yourself will be very valuable. Another thing you can do is you can do some assessments that will help establish what your child needs. So this is so important because kids are so different. And when, you know, a parent, like when you enter an ABA program, the last thing you want is for that program to just give your child sort of a cookbook of these are the things you must do, right? So it's super important to establish exactly what your child needs and what you would like for them. Parents have different choices for their children. So do some assessments. Our skills assessment, which is online as well, Skills for Autism, is pretty useful. It's very, very long. So, you know, as you have some time, and so what you can do obviously is answer, I don't know, 20 questions each day, and it'll take you a while, but you'll get through them, and it'll help you really, really narrow down the things that your child should be doing for their age and is not doing, and then you can select, and you can say, well, you know, this is really important to me, that one can wait, this is what I really want. And then that way, when you get to the States and when you're ready to go, you will be in a position to sit with a BCBA and say, these are the things I want. I'm willing to give you X number of hours because my child's also in school or whatever it is, and I really want to focus on these things. And by the way, this is his capability. These are the areas that he's strong. These are the areas that he's weak. Like, this will give a lot of information about your child. So that'll give you a head start.
Is it Hope Ridge?
No.
Okay.
No.
I don't know then.
Hope
I don't
Ridge is
see
a
it.
large
Okay.
provider.
Well, I'm not seeing Mark Knight on that. We'll keep looking. But we have your email, so I can come back to you. Okay. I wanted to get to Brian next. Brian says, good morning, Dr. Doreen and Shannon. Just thought I would contribute and ask for any input on medications to address. My 16-and-a-half-year-old seems to be diagnosed with, in addition to medium functioning ASD, inattentive ADHD, ADD. We are considering meds since his lack of focus is seriously impaired and his learning in class at home. In short, it is quite bad right now, despite his 98% plus IQ, except for pragmatic.
Okay.
I will add that his inability to complete anything at school has magnified what was already a large amount of self-critical words. I hate that self-critical words, and physically pounding hands, legs, and head.
Okay.
Sending you a hug.
Great. So happy that you reached out, Brian. Let's talk about this. This is one of those scenarios where you can actually intervene right away and make a huge difference in your child's life going forward. So he's only 6.5, which is terrific. And it sounds like he's very high functioning, 98 plus IQ, which also to me implies that he's got quite a bit of language because most IQ tests are language based. So that's all really good news. What it sounds like to me is that he's having a really hard time receiving information because he's unable to attend for longer periods of time. And as a result of that, he's starting to really have self-esteem issues, right? So he's starting to feel bad about himself because he's not keeping up, right? And especially with kids who are like normal IQ, what happens is they're very aware of their own failures, let's put it that way, and then they start really feeling bad about themselves, which is so important that at any level for any human being, how you feel about yourself is going to have a massive impact on how you do in life. Doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing. If you're not feeling good about yourself, it's going to really impact your life overall. So what I really suggest you do at this point is, yes, please do consult with a psychiatrist or neurologist about medications. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the medications for ADD, attention. It is ADHD, but yours is inattentive type, right? So there's nothing wrong. They would evaluate and determine if it's an appropriate thing for him, right? I have a lot of children who do tremendously better on some form of stimulant medication, which is the medication for ADHD. Now, recently, there's also medications, like a medication that might be really good for him, actually, it would be probably a really good medication for you to try, is Strattera. Strattera is actually an SSRI. It's a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, but it is used for ADHD. And that might be kind of a cool thing for him because it might help him with the attention aspect, and it will help him with not feeling too anxious or down on himself. So talk to a psychiatrist or neurologist and figure out the medication part. It'll be life-changing for him, and it is important. And then I think that it is also important for you to kind of figure out what's going on in school. Like clearly, also I don't know what class level he's in. I don't know if he's in special ed, regular ed. That would be very important as well, by the way. Like for a child who has normal IQ, you probably want to make sure that he's not in special ed, or if he is, he's being reverse mainstreamed into regular ed so that he has a lot of opportunity to learn with other kids. If he is in regular ed, make sure he has help, because sometimes it's so difficult for our kids to keep up with stuff, not because they're not capable, just because their functioning is a little different and they're distracted all the time. So make sure that he has help to just stay on target, and then he'll do well. It sounds like he just needs a little bit of support right now to succeed. If you are able to get an ABA program, this is the type of child that does actually really, really well with high quality, good ABA. They would actually focus a lot on integrating into school. So what they would do outside of school is they would work on skills that have to do with attention. So some of the stuff that we work on with some of our higher functioning kids are executive functioning skills, things that have to do with divided attention, sustained attention, being able to set shift, go back and forth between two different activities and maintain attention on one versus the other. Lots of attention type drills or skills. And then those types of things tend to help significantly when the child is in school. It's one thing to pay attention to someone who's sitting right in front of you. It's another thing to pay attention to a teacher who's sitting far from you and you have a million things that you could be thinking about or looking at and being distracted by. So those are things that actually get better if there's someone practicing them with you. So you could be doing ABA to help those things in the afternoons, for example, and then, of course, in school it'll help your child do better in general. So I do recommend that you intervene both medically and behaviorally or cognitive behaviorally, get your child on the right path, and it'll be wonderful for him.
Okay, I found, so it's Project Hope Foundation.
There you go.
But it's technically in South Carolina, but hopefully it's not too far from Charlotte, because Charlotte is right there on the border.
Yes.
But there it is, and tell them that Dr. Granpeesheh sent you. There we are. Okay. I do see that Joannie had written back in and said that the first time he dropped the F-bomb, somebody was picking on him. The second time he got angry about something.
Yeah.
I find that sometimes the F-bomb starts with something, but then it gets people's attention.
It definitely does, and it's a habit, right? As you and I know, Shannon. So
What? What?
So let's be clear. You also need to replace it with something else that's meaningful to him, right? So it doesn't have to, he's trying to express himself like most people. He's trying to emphasize something. That's when people use the F-bomb. And maybe you will teach him another word that is a little bit more acceptable and reward the use of that word.
And she also said, are those executive function activities something we can do at home?
Absolutely, a lot of them are, yeah. And that's why I often recommend to people, please go on Skills. I'm going to figure out a way to just give access to Skills content to parents. Maybe we will do a book, as you and I have talked about a lot.
Yeah, but
there's
there
so many
always
good
used to be a
things in there.
14-day free trial, and I'd like to, lobby
Yeah,
for that
yeah.
again, so that you guys can get in and
But
look around a little bit.
We're
But
also about to rebuild Skills.
I
So
know,
we're
it's
like
just gonna
making
be
a
that
lot of
much better.
modifications. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like those activities in general are going to be very useful to a lot of kids.
There we go. Anna says, this week I had my IEP, giving you a hug, and I had my ABA program manager and the school team and parents working together what would
Great.
be best for my son. We showed data from ABA showing how his progress at home has been
Wonderful.
and what programs we are currently working on. I also had my ABA supervisors attend some of his OT, PT, and speech sessions just so we all work together with our son's progress. Thank you for encouraging
That's awesome.
me to advocate for my son. We need a dance. We need like
Honestly, that's like the ideal scenario, and I'm so happy for you, and I hope that you will continue to have really good supervisors and teachers this is what's possible when people work together.
And
Love
Anna,
it.
you need to like reward yourself because
Yes.
you know that song, This Girl is on Fire, this mom is on fire. That was a lot to coordinate, but you made that happen and got people to be working together on the team. So you need to give yourself some sort of substantive reward because that was hard work.
I love that you brought that up because often
You've taught
we
me
just-
enough.
But it's such an important thing, right?
Yes.
Like, and the more we remember that our own lives are also little segments that can be rewarded, it's so important.
You have to, otherwise it's like, well, so what did I just do? But on a regular basis, my one friend, my college friend, that her son was diagnosed with autism 20 years before my son was. And I remember calling her on a day when it was a bad day and we were in the grocery store and everybody let us know how inconvenient we were.
Yeah.
That my son's behaviors were inconvenient, that
Yeah.
all of these things. And I was in the parking lot and I called her and I was like, how did you get through this? And she said, oh girl, you got to stand tall and put your shoulders back and know for yourself that you are doing something that other people can't even begin to comprehend.
Yeah.
You are doing something so amazing, so miraculous, and showing up for your kid in a way that they don't even know about.
Yeah.
You can't
So
take it
true.
from them. You got to
So
have
true.
it for yourself. And I always think about that because my shoulders are permanently like this. That I go, okay, I got to put my shoulders back and know I am one
Yeah.
of those moms like
That's right.
Anna. And it's a big deal, Anna. It's a very
right.
big deal. So we celebrate you today. Lucy wants to know, what are the signs to look for to know when the child is ready to graduate from ABA and go to school full time?
That's a great question.
It is a great
Lucy.
question.
And I think it's not a moment in time. I think it's a gradual thing. Like usually we do this very gradually. And it's part of the reason I love Anna's prior quote or input here is that if you have a good relationship with your school, then they will work with you to establish this kind of fading out schedule. And I think it really is about what we want for our kids. So first you start there. Every child is different. And you as the parent are going to come to a point, at some point, where you're going to say, these are the things I want, and this is what my child is actually really going to be capable of accomplishing, right? It's like you don't want to set goals that are impossible to achieve because then you're going to be depressed. There's going to be too much pressure on your child for the rest of his life. He's never going to feel good about himself. You want to be realistic. But once you've come to the point where you have established these are the things and my child is learning these things and this is great, then you want to start changing your focus from learning new content on a one-to-one basis to using what he learned and learning from the environment. Those are the two key things. It's like everything that we learn in ABA is useless unless you get an opportunity to actually use it in school with your peers, right? That's the environment for children where the social environment where they get to use their skills with their peers. So if your child is at that level where he's learned a lot of stuff and now you want to give him the opportunity to practice those skills at school, that's one side of it. The second side of it is we always have stuff to continue to learn, right? And it is very important that our children get to a point where they can learn from a group environment and more focused on academics, right? So if a child, as we were saying earlier, Shannon, if your child needs something like potty training, that's best learned from an ABA team, not from school. But if your child needs to now catch up on math, obviously that's best learned in an academic setting. So it's about the content, it's about how your child has learned now, what phase of his own education is he in. Is he at the point where he can learn from observation? That's a very important thing. Or does he still need that one-to-one tutoring to learn? And what's the content that's left, right? And so if you're at a phase now where you're like, he's going to get everything he needs out of school, then transition into school. But remember that there are certain things school will never really focus on. Like things like daily living, adaptive skills at home. Like you're not going to get those from school. So make sure that you're done with all the content that you would otherwise get outside of school from an ABA program. And think of an ABA program as just, tutoring for all the other things, right? Yeah. So, and you can be in school and fade out very, very, very slowly from your ABA program. And I recommend that because, come on, I have kids who leave the program and then parent calls back 5 years later and says, hey, he's having some issues with this, that, and the other thing, and can you guys get involved again? And we do, and it's just that. It's what the child needs.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody knows, though, that it's not you graduate from your ABA program on Friday and then you start school full-time on Monday.
Oh, there's a huge overlap.
Huge overlap. What we're looking at first is, when is it appropriate for the child to go to school at all?
Yes.
And is the child going, a half day or a full day to begin with while they're still doing ABA?
Yes.
And then eventually it goes to full day at school while having ABA in the afternoon, evening, or in the early morning, whatever works, whenever you can, and on the weekends.
Yes.
That, my son started going to school for a full day, because he ramped up, but I think he was right before he turned 5, he was going to school full day, but he didn't graduate from his ABA program until he was 8.
Yeah.
So, and it's different for everybody, but just as an example, that it's not an either or, you can be doing both at the same time. It's a balancing act, which is why that was the topic today.
Right.
I do want to address that Brian had written in and said, I'm listening to every word. I love that about you, Brian. He said, grade 1, regular class, not completing class tasks and self-esteem issues.
Perfect.
He also said, thank you. And he said, I will check out the prescription you suggested. We visit the Mind Institute next week. We may start meds, which is great.
Great. Good for you that you're up there. That's going to be perfect for you. Lovely.
And Joanne said, LOL, the school obviously blames us for the Fbomb, but it was not used at home. And she said, I love skills, but couldn't get the ABAs to help with it, which is so sad.
Yeah.
But, you know, you don't have to tell them that it's from skills. The first time that I brought in a thing from skills to the school, right, I said, oh, here's a goal that I would like to have worked on. I didn't say that I printed it up from skills, right? Because people have this preconceived notion, oh, that's from somebody else, so we disavow that. But if you say, I'd like for you to work on this goal, and I'd like for you to track it, you totally can do that. And any ABA provider who won't do that is, you know. But I also want to say, on the other side of the Fbomb, and this is because I always give the example of how Jem, the first time he used the Fbomb, as we were waiting to go into a car wash, and he knew, I think he was 4, and remember, language was really hard fought for us, and we were still developing language, and he loved to go through the car wash. The first time we went through the car wash, it was a sensory nightmare, and I didn't think we were going to live through it. But then he decided he liked it, and that was a big reward. And Grandma lived over by this one car wash, and he would always ask. So we went through the car wash, but we, you know, you're waiting in line, and the car ahead of us punched in their numbers, their code, and went in. But apparently they got the full deluxe everything, right?
Okay.
And nobody ever gets that. So he had an expectation that it was going to be a certain amount of time, and we were waiting, and he's getting revved up. When is it our turn? When is it our turn? And then finally, from the back seat, he said, when is this effing guy going to be done?
Okay.
Now, I want to say in my case, Joannie, that it was my fault, that I have been known to drop an F-bomb from time to time. I
can't even imagine young Jem doing that.
And but in the moment, I didn't know what to do, because we on a daily basis, we were sitting with him 8 hours a day, trying to foster language, right, in a very, specific teaching method. But we never taught. That would have been something that I said in the kitchen when he was in another room, right? We were trying not to do it around him. So in the moment, what I was excited about was that he had picked up that language on his own.
Yeah.
There is something about that to be celebrated. Now, obviously, it's a problem, because they need to know it's not acceptable in most places to say that. And so we had to backtrack. But I always say that in the car wash, I was like, oh, we don't say that word. But I in my mind, I was like, when the car wash is over, who do I call first? My husband?
Yeah.
My mother?
Yeah.
Or my supervisor?
To
share that he picked up the F word on his own. So
And
that was my
also-
take on it.
And also, like, if you hear something like that, like, your immediate reaction is just to laugh.
Well, yes.
And that's a huge reinforcer for our
yes.
kids, right? So they're
Yes.
like, oh, I did something funny.
Now, for us, because we're weird, and I fully admit that we are weird people, and I also knew that there was going to come a time when he was a teenager when he was going to have to be able to be proficient at swearing to get along with the other boys, and I know that is not how everybody thinks. That does not have to be how you choose to. But we made the rule that you can only swear when you're in the car with mom or dad.
Okay.
And you cannot swear anyplace else, only when we're in the
That's so
car.
funny.
And we had to add that it's only with mom and dad because we picked up my mother once from the airport and he was just, and she went, what is going on?
I can only imagine.
Right? But,
Oh my God.
and unfortunately, I'm very sad to report that my son is very proficient at dropping the F-bomb. I don't know if I had it to do over again, if I would do it.
That. It's so funny.
But-
Like, with my kids, they just don't. And I often wonder if it's because I did and they disapproved of
Really?
it.
I've
don't
never heard
know.
you drop an
I don't know.
F-bomb.
I mean, I do at home occasionally, not that often, but like my kids are like, they just don't. Their language is so different than mine. It's so
But,
interesting.
and I believe from you, but for most people, I'd be like, is it that you're just not hearing them? When
No.
Sonny is playing video games with his friends, he's
No.
never dropping an F-bomb?
He does, but not commonly, not often. Like, yeah, it's really
Well.
interesting.
You know, I have no words to say. You will notice that I never got a Parent of the Year award. like, let's be honest here. We're just being real here. Sarah said, we have been working on social chains with teachers and have found some success. It allows them to build relationships with their teacher. And
Great,
thank you,
great.
Sarah. I do want to go to
Johnny is saying that she's right at that point and trying to get back into ABA and is not finding a way to do that.
and that executive functions is a huge problem for him. We're just looking into meds.
You know, Johnny, one of the things that we've struggled with over the years is also that I feel like there's a lot of our, I guess, adolescents and teens and so on that just need that kind of cognitive executive function emphasis and nothing else, you know. And there's such a, it's hard for people to believe that you can be using techniques of ABA to teach those very advanced things like executive functions. And there's part of me that really, we tried years ago, actually. You talk about skills. I noticed that Johnny used to use skills, but with skills, we actually made one, a different version of skills called advanced cognition. And that's probably what you need, which was like we had taken all the lessons from our cognition, executive functioning, social, and I'm trying to think, there were 4 areas that we'd play maybe, and we'd put them into one thing. And I think that would be very valuable to a lot
Yeah.
of parents too if they had access to that.
I also want to say that executive functions for anyone at that age it's a big deal.
Yeah.
So I want to normalize that for you. When I used to teach, because I taught college for a lot of years, but right after 9/11, I went into teach junior high and high school English. It was look, what was I
That's
thinking?
so different.
Right,
huh?
it's so different, and especially after 9/11. I mean,
Oh.
it was a big deal, but it was what I felt that I needed to do. And one of the things that I had to do was teach 7th grade English.
Wow.
And I was very excited that they were just doing a program then where they were saying, we can't even get the kids to focus and complete an assignment. And so they asked how I would feel about doing this experimental program. But I see it in all these programs now. By the time my son was in 7th grade, it was a thing that they were doing with all of the kids, where each kid was given a planner and that you
Oh,
worked
yes.
daily in the
Yes,
planner
yes.
and said, okay, everybody turn to page 34 in the planner. And I'm going to
Right.
give you an assignment right now, and you're going to write it down here. Now we're going to think about it backwards. This has to be done by this day. So what day do you have to have the rough draft done? And what day do you have your
Yes,
brainstorming done? And we would
yes.
put it in their planner, and we trained them. These were, for the most part, I had kids with IEPs in that classroom, but these were mostly neurotypical kids that this was brand new to them. They had never used a planner. And now when my son started 7th grade, it was planner everything.
I remember,
planner, everything,
yes.
right?
Absolutely. I mean, it was a lesson. We actually ended up adding a lesson, which was this, because planning and using a planner is something they introduced in, I think,
Yeah.
middle school,
Yes.
and you had to get good at it. Yeah.
Yes. But I got to be, you know, in a classroom where they were just rolling out this very specific program, and to me it made so much more sense, and my kids did so much better with it. And at the same time, I had a friend who'd gone into being a business coach, and I was like, it's so funny because he was dealing with all these, you know, business owners who were in their 40s and their 50s, and he was having to take them back to that and say, you want this goal? Let's look at and
Right.
go. And I thought, well, that's just so interesting that it's success no matter how you do it, and it's executive functions.
Right,
That's
right.
literally what it is. How do you plan for a goal?
Right.
How do you get there? How do you check that you're doing everything right? So I just want you to know, Joannie, that at 11, he's right there with every other 11-year-old on the spectrum or not. However, when we have our kiddos, it's going to take them a little bit more maybe to
Right,
learn it.
right.
But the lessons are there, and you can use it, and it will be so great. She says, I appreciate it, Shannon, because I don't remember that as older siblings, since I guess they figured it out on their own.
Yeah.
But maybe they just figured it out faster. I'll bet they were also teaching it in their programs, too, at school. Because I think it is the normal thing now in junior high.
Yeah,
In-
yeah,
in good junior
absolutely.
highs.
Yes, I think so. But now I think I think it's past that,
Do you?
right? Yeah, because now everything is on laptops and computers.
Yeah, but they still have planners on there.
On there, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Although I think there are still schools that are starting with the paper planner because
Sure.
there's something about that. And I will say this, that
That's definitely something about that. I'm still using that.
I do too. And I was reading a thing recently that it's not a study, but I get a lot of stuff, ADHD, on my feeds because it goes hand in hand. And,
does,
and,
for
and I
sure.
run a little bit that way. I don't qualify for a diagnosis
Also,
unless you want to
I
diagnose
totally
me.
agree.
Right? But I run a little that way. And what I hear from the ADHD community is that the paper planner hits a different part of the brain than the one online.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I think there's a difference in particular. There's a couple of differences with paper and online. One is writing something is a way of entry that is different than typing something.
Yes.
So that's one thing. The other thing is, think about the screen size, and that is your maximum universe.
Yeah.
Whereas with written material, you can expand. Like, look at the calendar on your wall here, right?
Yes.
You could never do that on a screen size because you
No.
just can't expand that universe. Like
Yeah.
for me, yesterday I decided, okay, I'm going to produce multiple Excel tables on my screen, on my one screen, so that I can pull up to-do lists for the various directors very quickly. It's never going to be the same for me as having pages on a notebook. But, you know, it's one
Well,
way.
and if you think about it, even skills started from a ginormous
Enormous.
piece of paper.
Oh, it did, yes, which I still have. And then
Yeah.
it became actually 8 books.
Yes.
Before it
Yes.
became, yeah.
That, think about how big that piece of paper is, you guys. Anyway, and I love that Joannie thinks it's LOL that I was like excited that he was talking. Yes. What can I say? I am an imperfect person. Okay. Do we have time for one more question?
We have 1 minute.
What are your feelings on a 3-year-old going to school? That is the only place we can get OT and speech services.
That's a tough one because
Is it? Is it really?
I mean, well, because on the one hand, you might need speech and OT depending on the child. So I don't want to deprive any child of what they need. But in general, I would say 3. My real preference is to just not go to school and do a lot of ABA, because very quickly you're going to not have that time anymore.
And plus which, if the school's going to offer you their FAPE, free appropriate public education, and in that they're going to offer you a setting, and then they're going to offer you services.
Yes.
So they have to. It's their responsibility to offer you a full package. So they're going to offer your 3-year-old a school setting, and then under the services they're going to offer you speech and OT. you have the ability at 3 to
Yes.
say, thank you,
Yes.
I will take the speech and OT. I do not want I'm going to
Exactly.
do ABA during the rest of the time. Here's when, and I encourage you to say it this way, here's when we're available for speech
Yes.
and OT. They're going to tell you we're not available then, here's when we have speech and OT, and then you have to make a decision about, do you want to go back to your ABA provider
Right,
and say,
right.
this is the only time I can do speech and OT. I can tell you at least 1 year, I wrote a note and I said, because you are not able to do speech and OT when we said we were available, we're going to have to forego that for a medically necessary treatment. I did not say we are declining speech and OT services. I said,
good point.
you have not given it to us when we are available, so we are recognizing the need for this, but we'll have to wait and see if we can do it next year. And miraculously, the next year they worked with our schedule.
Yes, there you go.
Just saying. But you don't have to say yes to the whole thing and or no to the whole thing. You can. We still got speech and OT, and he was not going to school.
Yes.
It is a service. We even got it during the summer.
Exactly.
So, there you go.
We are
Okay.
out of time.
We are out of time, but I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to let you know that tomorrow we have Judy. What is her last name? I cannot think what her last name is. From the Autism in Entertainment Conference is going to be with us. Utah, thank you. She is going to be with us and talking about this, how this
great.
miraculous conference came about.
Great. Great.
And all the exciting things that are going to be happening at that, which you would think would just be about people acting, but it's about jobs.
Yes.
And which is very exciting because we know many of our kiddos are attracted to that field. So that will be really wonderful tomorrow. So I hope you guys will tune in for that and come back next week for Ask Dr. Doreen. Until then, thank you.
Thank you.
And give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We hope to see you there.